Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special telecast. In fact, in our continuing coverage of the Union Budget 2026-27, I am Tina Jha. The first Union Budget prepared in the Kartavya Bhavan, inspired by three Kartavyas, which is to accelerate and sustain economic growth by enhancing productivity and competitiveness and building resilience to the volatile global dynamics. Second, to fulfill aspirations of people and build their capacity, making them strong partners in India's path to prosperity. And third, aligning with Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas to ensure that every family, every community and region, every sector has access to the resources, amenities and the opportunities for meaningful participation. That was the central theme of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's historic 9th consecutive Union Budget that she presented under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The entire budget was weaved around these three Kartavyas, to fulfill which the Finance Minister announced government interventions in the specific areas. So the key priorities include elevating capital expenditure while targeting a fiscal deficit reduction. The Finance Minister termed it a Yuva Shakti-driven budget with special emphasis on the poor, underprivileged and the disadvantaged. Through the day today, we've discussed key announcements, also the allocations that have been made to different sectors. Over the next 1 hour, we'll try and summarize the budget for you with the help of distinguished guests who are joining us on the telecast. I'm pleased to welcome on this edition of covering the budget, covering and analyzing the Union Budget 2026-27. With me in the studio is Professor Charan Singh, CEO, IGRO Foundation. Professor, delighted to have you with us on this very special day today. Joining us virtually is Mr. Sachin Chugh. He is Vice President, Hydrogen Association of India, expert on green energy. Mr. Jyotish Indrabhai, he is CEO, Netra Semi, and Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Vice Chancellor, Nalanda University. Mr. Dilip Chinoy, former SG of FICCI, is expected to join us shortly. But let's start this discussion straight away. It's been an important day amid expectations of how the Finance Minister is expected to announce those growth-oriented measures in the wake of global uncertainties, amid the economic survey making certain recommendations on how to put India on a growth trajectory which is higher than the current growth that we are witnessing. But Professor, your first reaction on the budget that has come amid such uncertainties in the geopolitical landscape, but also the fact that it is a very important time for India. We have a roadmap for Viksit Bharat 2047, and this budget was expected to bring us closer to that goal, take us closer to realizing that goal, so some growth-oriented measures which could help us sustain the momentum and put us on a high growth trajectory.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the fabulous budgets that I would say, and I'll tell you the reason for that. I always feel that the fiscal policy is reflected through the budget. And this budget is sort of, if you read it carefully, is delineating the policy that the government is going to pursue over the next 25 years. Right. We want to become Viksit, a statement which the Prime Minister has made officially at Niti Aayog in May. This is the first budget after that policy announcement was done. We as the union government at the center has to give a lead, and they've done it. The states have to follow. In this budget, the policy statement, the fiscal policy statement, how are we going to achieve this Viksit Bharat in the next 22 years? There has to be emphasis on technology. Everybody has to be coming along. The disadvantaged, the youth, the women, they have to join us. The industry has also to join us. In the industry, MSMEs have to play a very important role, and they have to also join us. AI, IT has an important role. So if you look at the announcement that the Finance Minister made in the budget and look at these policy tools that are going to take us there, the quality of labor, the education, the health of the labor that has been spoken about, the capital that will be required to combine with the labor to produce output, that has been a high-level committee has been constituted. So to me, the budget is just not a balance of payments or a statement of account or a balance sheet or profit and loss account of the country. It is much beyond that. And today's budget made it very clear. While it is an annual budget, and the FM spoke about the gross fiscal deficit, the revenue deficit and other things in a brief manner, but overall, overarching, the story was about the policy which they are going to pursue now medium term, some till 2030 and some till 2047. So I would rate it very high from the angle of a fiscal policy statement that the FM did today.
Okay, Mr. Chenoy, welcome. Thank you for your time. Union budgets are often assessed by the headline announcements that they make. What stood out for you in terms of a headline story from the budget 2026-27?
Thank you, Tina, and thank you for having me here. I think if you look at the budget announcement, right, the finance minister started off with the 3 kartavyas. Of course, they moved into a new building, so it was interesting. But what really stood out was to accelerate and sustain economic growth by embracing productivity and competitiveness. I think the first time we are really hearing productivity and competitiveness in the same sentence in the budget speech. And what this budget has done, it is, of course, looked at a whole slew of financial sector reforms, the corporate bond market, the taxation reforms, but has looked at positioning India as a strategic player in some select industries, not of today, but of the future. And second, looking at our vast youth population, the budget has looked at accelerating manufacturing, accelerated growth of those sectors in a manner that it will lead to employment generation. And then, since most of our GDP is in urban centers, it has got a plan to increase the number of urban centers in India through a challenge mechanism by spending only 25% of the requirement to change that cities, and the cities wanting to raise that money from the market and the state governments putting in. So it's actually putting a collaborative effort to development, challenging states to do most of the funds, most of the programs there, I think about 7 programs are challenge funds. So this is not only an ambitious budget, not only a strategic budget, but is also a cooperative budget. And very interestingly, all the numbers are not talked about. It's a budget which shows fiscal responsibility. It shows reduction in subsidies, and it shows that targeting and looking at different aspects of the society with specific time-bound action plans.
That's right. You've given us an overview of some important announcements that the finance minister has made, given the challenge that she's been facing. There were huge expectations from various sectors, given the growth momentum that Indian economy is in. But she termed it a Yuva Shakti-driven budget. In fact, the Prime Minister also called it a budget which is a roadway or a highway of sorts for opportunities. Before I go across to the guests who are joining us virtually, let's listen in to the Prime Minister.
हाल में जो बड़ी बड़ी ट्रेड डील्स भारत ने की है, मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स, उसका मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट भारत के युवाओं को मिले, भारत के लघु और मध्यम उद्योग वालों को मिले, इस दिशा में बजट में बड़े बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। साथियों, इस बजट में मेक इन इंडिया और आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को नई रफ्तार के लिए महत्वाकांक्षी रोड मैप प्रस्तुत किया गया है। इस बजट में नई उभरती इंडस्ट्रीज यानी सनराइज सेक्टर्स को जिस मजबूती के साथ समर्थन दिया गया है वह अभूतपूर्व है। बायोफार्मा शक्ति मिशन, सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन 2.0, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्कीम, रेयर अर्थ कॉरिडोर का निर्माण, क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स पर बल, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर में नई स्कीम, हाईटेक टूल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा, चैंपियन एमएसएमईज तैयार करना, ये फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, देश की वर्तमान और भविष्य की आवश्यकताओं का ध्यान रखती है।
All right. So taking on from what the Prime Minister said, what Mr. Chenoy also referred to as opportunities for the youth of this country. Professor Chaturvedi, let me bring you in here. India's demographic dividend advantage is something that we talk about. This budget, the finance minister referred to as Yuva Shakti driven budget. The Prime Minister said this opens up huge opportunities for the youth. What are some of the new opportunities that you see this budget opening up for the youngsters, for the young population in India? What is that roadmap that you see this budget announcing in terms of skilling and upskilling of the youngsters in the country?
I think, Tinaji, a very important point, and I'm very glad that Mr. Chinoy is here. We have been facing this issue for long in terms of employment, which very often people criticize this government for. But if you see, this budget has made a very substantive contribution in terms of contributing towards employability. And what you see is education degrees and the nature of employment that we want, particularly in the sector that the clipping you just now showed with Honorable Prime Minister, listing the sunrise sectors, be that biopharma, rare earth minerals, semiconductors, and number of those dimensions which require skills, which require our preparedness. And this, Tinaji, did not confine to sunrise sectors. The government has also paid a huge attention in terms of the second-tier job absorption in cities which are away from the broad metro setup. So you have in metro as well as in second and third-tier cities scope to support tourism through very focused attention on skills of guides, tourist guides, in the health sector with the assistance that you require on third and fourth level. You have also paid a huge attention in terms of how content creation with the schools is to be focused. So as a result, you find that at multiple levels, youth's requirement as per their capacity, competence, and educational background, huge scope has been given. Universities now have the responsibility to connect with this huge opportunity that has come. In form of energy transition, green energy, you find that for youth, huge opportunity has been created and multiple scope for intervention with industry. If you recall, last year's apprenticeship program has got a huge success. This year's economic survey has in detail analyzed the success of this experience and experiment that we did. I think the bridging of skills and employability was a major issue, and today we have addressed, as the clipping of the Prime Minister showed, there are 7 areas which have been chosen, and I'm sure youth would be able to take advantage of this. The focus for the first time has come on schools. 15,000 schools as part of the labs would be brought in for content writing and also for training programs that would be there. So I think it's very heartening to see success of interconnection between universities and schools for job-oriented landscape that is needed.
Absolutely. In terms of opportunities, there is also a big opportunity in terms of expanding the country's capability in the tech sector. Mr. Indra Bhai, I'll come to you on this. The Finance Minister announced the beginning of the Indian Semiconductor Mission 2.0, and she said this is going to expand the capabilities of our tech requirement and of the tech necessity. How do you see the allocation, but also some of the measures that she announced related to this sector, capitalizing on the momentum of the semiconductor journey that India has seen, but how we are also aiming to expand and strengthen the ecosystem?
Yes, thank you for having me here. So basically, the biggest Bharat, it cannot be achieved without supply chain resilience. And semiconductor plays an extremely important role here. So last few years, we have seen schemes like ISM 1.0, DLI, C2S, all those programs to strengthen the semiconductor journey India is going to have. But this year, we are seeing continued commitment of India towards the semiconductor journey. And we are seeing ISM 2.0 mentioned, as well as skilling, and also the kind of emphasis on the IP stack, and also the supply chain for semiconductors. So these factors are extremely important for making India a semiconductor hub. it is extremely good that government is taking our continued focus on ISM is there, and we are when the more details are there, we are hoping to see much more major steps in this journey. And one more thing is there are AI and hardware is extremely important, and the data centers, AI enabling, all those areas government is putting attention in this budget, and we are hoping to see more in the implementation phase. It is coming more clear, and the steps are very concrete in these areas.
One important step in that regard has also been in terms of the finance minister making a point about long-term energy security, about critical minerals. Mr. Chog, I'll get you here on this. How important is this link between our renewable energy ambitions and industrial competitiveness?
Yeah, thanks, Tina, for having me here. And I think from the energy perspective, when we see this budget, I think this particular budget has arrived at a moment, when energy has ceased to be merely a sectoral concern. It has become the defining grammar of economic resilience, geopolitical alignment, the changes which we are seeing across the world, and more importantly, the climate responsibility. So against this backdrop of volatile capital flows, restless geopolitics, and accelerating global energy reset, I think the signal which we are getting from this budget is that it's a very deliberate pivot which has happened, the pivot which is going to carry us from ambition to architecture, and from the declarations to the deployable capital. So for us, we perceive that it has moved the debate from climate idealism to energy realism. So with this decisive expansion, in the public expenditure and a clear preference for system-level interventions, we have seen earlier interventions which were very sectoral, but these system-level interventions, I think this particular edition of the budget, it recasts India's energy transition, both from environmental aspirations as well as the strategic national investment. So the emphasis, is unmistakable. You scale up the clean generation. We have been doing that, but it's in the larger interest that generation, clean energy generation, which is getting increased. You have to link it with the energy storage. We have seen the measures and being announced to de-risk the energy storage in this particular budget. There have been announcements regarding hardening of the grid, that is bringing more resilience into the grid, with all focus on localizing the manufacturing. The panel talked about how it would boost the jobs, and while creating the opportunities for the hard-to-abate sectors through the novel initiatives like carbon capture and new energy verticals. So we have in this particular budget, the effort is being seen that different sectors are getting stitched to arrive at a national narrative, and that is going to influence all peripheral aspects of job creation, of MSME strengthening, as well as leading to the specific programs related to the augmentation of the education sector. So in an overall, this appears to be a stitching methodology which the government has devised, and we are going to see some encouraging results in the time to come.
One encouraging statement, Mr. Chinoy, that came from the finance minister was when she spoke about the compliance reduction. She referred to the Prime Minister's speech delivered on Independence Day, and she said after that speech, more than 300 reforms have been rolled out. From your experience and based on how the industry has been reacting, are businesses really feeling that kind of ease that the economic survey spoke about? We did discuss the deregulation and the compliance reduction aspect today, when the finance minister laid stress on the fact that the momentum of reforms are going to continue. What is it that perhaps the industry will seek from the government in the coming times? And I ask you this because this government does not restrict itself to budgets. There are big policy measures that are announced even post budgets. So perhaps the industry was expecting some big move, but the finance minister fell short of announcing it.
I think, Tina, if you look at the memorandum that which accompanies the budget speech, the memorandum explaining the provisions of the budget speech, it's a very big document, but majority of those clauses in that relate to simplification of tax laws. Right. For example, income tax, right? If you make a mistake, you were penalized, right? You could not appeal. When you appeal, there was interest. She's done away with that. So there is, and there are many such areas. The time for filing your returns. If you have foreign assets which you have not declared, you have, it's a fast declaration scheme, 2026. If you look at the other aspects of complying, and she's also talked about how to resolve disputes. She's talked about the faceless thing being much more integrated. Smaller taxpayers will not require to follow steps. They can just get a certificate. So from the common man to the corporate businessman, and I think corporate India wanted huge reduction or elimination of MAT, but she's made two changes in MAT. She's reduced the rate, and then she's saying it's the final kind of tax. So if you see this, it's a step. But what will be music to everybody's ears would be that she is looking at this committee, which is looking at streamlining the financial sector. Yes. Because that's a very, very big challenge. And if you remember when this government came into power, in 2014-15, right, we had a triple balance sheet problem. This year, the chief economic advisor talked about double balance sheet advantage. So a lot of simplification of processes, especially in the income tax, a lot of clarifications in the income tax, a lot of discussions on advance tax rulings, both in customs and income tax. So there are a lot of, it could not be set out in the speech, but it's there in the details of the memorandum going forward. And what is interesting is that even in the schemes that they've announced, there's a lot of simplification and cooperation between the players and state governments and industry. So it's a very well thought out thing. And of course, the Prime Minister has said, less government, more governance, right? And you have the Jan Vishwas 2.0 coming in. You have, in this budget speech, you've decriminalized many of the provisions there. So a lot which has happened here. But of course, given the complexity of our things and also enabling the MSMEs to have these corporate mitras who will help them with compliance is all positive steps, and it can't be done in one budget. It will be done over a period of time. I think industry has to keep on saying that these are the issues and these are the solutions, and this is a government that listens.
I'll take your perspective also, Professor, of this. You have, served several years in the banking sector. Why was it needed? Why was a high-level committee on banking for Viksit Bharat needed at this point in time? So as he said, this could have been announced perhaps in the previous budget. So the finance minister chose this particular budget to announce this, at the same time assuring that the government will take further steps to improve the scale and efficiency of the public sector NBFC.
Exactly. So I actually agree with what Mr. Shenoy said. This government moves step by step in a sequential manner, first thing. Secondly, it listens to the industry and then reacts and see what best it can do for the industry and ease of doing business. So since they've come in the second stint, we did another study with the SHM on ease of doing business. That's what the government wants. They want the corporate sector, they want the MSMEs to feel good and contribute. Now, when it comes to the financial sector, if we are now around a $4 trillion economy and want to be a $36 trillion economy in 22 years, obviously, financial sector and the banking sector sort of provides you the capital, which is oxygen to the industry. Now, how do you manage that 9 to 10 times bigger the economy would be? What would be the stage of the banks? So in the first stage, the banks have been consolidated. Large banks have been made now. And now what should be the second stage of these large banks? How should there be further consolidation? Small banks are there. There are private sector banks in the economy. There are other financial institutions. There's non-banking institutions are also there. They've started regulating them through the RBI. What would be the role of each one of them as we go forward? I think that's very important. If you remember, about 30 years ago, Narsimham committees were created to look at the role of the banking sector. Now that we are on the cusp of a Viksit Bharat and we have only 22 years to go, the growth has to be escalated from 6.5 to 7.5, which we are right now, to more than 9%. Who's going to finance that growth? MSMEs depend to a great extent to NBFCs. What are we going to do with the NBFCs? All those have to be seen in length. Also, if you look on the financial sector, where is the money going to come from? They spoke about restructuring the Power Finance Corporation, sort of a litmus test. They've also spoken about, and I think that's a fantastic idea, it's related to the corporate bonds, which they've been trying to somehow kickstart that, not happening. But the beautiful idea that this time they have in the budget is on the municipal bonds. They're giving incentives for the municipal bonds to develop. So given this overall picture of the growth of the economy and the support that the financial sector will have to provide if the economy has to grow manifold, what are the components, bank-wise, institution-wise, and instrument-wise? All that would have to be looked into, and setting up a high-level committee, I think, is just at the right time to do so.
Okay, shifting focus now to the Purvodaya states. Professor Chaturvedi, the finance minister also spoke about the Buddhist circuits, the eastern corridors. Is this just a cultural initiative, or do you see it as perhaps a more deeper geo-economic pivot to the eastern part of the country?
I think you are right, Tinapma. If you look at the efforts which are on, particularly related to Buddhism, the kind of geopolitics that we are seeing, continuous efforts by our neighboring country to expropriate Buddhist circuit infrastructure, literature, manuscript, I think we require a multi-pronged approach, not only to improve infrastructure, and this budget has tried, and I'm glad Finance Minister alluded to a specific branch within Buddhism to Theravada, where she actually emphasized in terms of infrastructure for Northeast, the idea of Mahayana, and even within that, the linguistic plurality. And if, Tina, you recall, in the past budget, she had emphasized on the Gyan Bharatam, the manuscript project that came up. This is continuation of that when physical infrastructure is to be approved. I'm really hoping that out of the 5 city university connect that she has announced, Nalanda would be one of them, and the Finance Commission's recommendations, which Dr. Pangaria chaired, which has also been accepted today. I think it's a brilliant idea to bring in that. It is also, Tina, we should not forget, important for our Act East policy. The idea of Northeast infrastructure, the corridors that she announced, and also the Buddhist circuit. The idea of Buddhism, if you see the history, it never distinguished between a spiritual religion on one side and business on the other. It actually combined the two, and the business, industry, trade, and linkages, they were part of the Buddhist circuit which came up in the past. Nalanda was the center in terms of how trade routes were nurtured. In fact, much before Nalanda, it was Takshila which nurtured this. And today, in her announcement, this explicit recognition in terms of how Buddhist circuits and the linkages are to be strengthened and taken forward, her idea of identifying 5 university cities, I think is a brilliant move forward in terms of how we look at infrastructure and we take the northeastern sector forward. The idea of Purvodaya has multiple components: the inland waterways, the shipping infrastructure that she talked about, the corridors that she referred to, and also the ideas that are there in terms of linkages for infrastructure improvement. I also include the tourist guides that I referred to earlier. I think are in toto give you an impression in terms of how comprehensive strategy has emerged from this budget for all the sectors, the intertwining of them, the interministerial linkages that are needed probably would go a long way in terms of felt gaps that we have been watching in the Northeast sector.
That's right. In fact, we've heard the Prime Minister often lay emphasis on the knowledge institutions that India once boasted of. He's spoken about the skilling aspect, creative industries that you just referred to, and which, like you spoke, the Prime Minister has often tried to paint a picture of a combination of, perhaps we can say, a soft power plus the skills strategy in so many ways. Do you think the budget, now formally announcing measures to this effect, could be shaping into India becoming a more knowledge-led growth model, something that we had in the past, but we are trying to now reclaim it through announcements and measures like these? Professor Chaturvedi?
Definitely, Tina. If you look at some of these sectors, for them, this budget is also a new lease of life, because somehow we are saying that biopharmaceutical is a sunrise sector. But in reality, if you see by 2032, you would see a huge decline in demand for chemical-based drug industry. There are WHO studies which have been for quite some time saying how biopharma is becoming a new priority. The intellectual property regimes that are associated with biopharmaceutical sector have strengthened their grip in terms of what biosimilars are to be kept in the market. So as a result, plant-based drugs is a new priority. That's the new way of health sector research. This budget, by its emphasis on biopharmaceutical, has not just pushed a sunrise sector. It has given a new lease of life to the pharmaceutical sector, which we should not forget emerged in 1970 with our Patent Act. And now that we are seeing changing industry and less demand for chemical-based drugs, generics are losing and new compounds are not coming. Right. So biopharmaceutical is the way forward. India has to prepare itself, as it happened in the software sector, where BPOs came up, Tina, in the biotechnology sector, medical biotechnology sector, CROs came up, contract research organizations, hundreds of them, thousands of them in the country. But there are very few CROs that have gone up the ladder to become a full-fledged biopharma. We were expecting that from some of the high-profile CROs, but they couldn't go up. This budget has given push and has shown the willingness to address the challenge of biosimilars. By addressing the twin challenge of biopharma and biosimilar, we have given new lease of life to our pharmaceutical sector. Hundreds and thousands of employments are there in this. This is one of the major sectors of our export. So by giving this push now, in next 20 years, we have prepared a huge knowledge base, not only for this, but also adequate emphasis on Ayush, Ayush-related preparedness. And that part is another major dimension, Tina, for support of the health sector. So knowledge, health, and preparedness for future. All three have come together in a very consolidated manner.
That's right. Both, in fact, all of these aspects that you spoke about, they have been central to our resilience model and also of our development cooperation model, something which has helped us become the voice of the developing countries. Mr. Chinoy, I'll take your perspective also on this, in how India can position itself as a leader in this space. So the announcement is significant, 10,000 crore Biopharma Shakti initiative, which will help us not only develop our own industry, but develop India as a global biopharma hub. What is the potential and how soon can we see the impact?
Okay, so if you look at this whole biopharma space, it's very important. Professor Chaturvedi has made a very good introduction into the space. So if you look at a pharmaceutical industry, we were very good in synthesis, right? We are not good, whether we're not good in either fermentation or not good. Biopharma means drugs which actually come out of the biosphere from the human, body and, things like that. So they are looking at this sector in a very, very different manner. It's a cross-ministerial collaboration between health, pharmaceuticals and biotechnology, Department of Biotechnology. BIRAC is a good program, but this is another program. It is going to be implemented over the next 5 years. It's looking at how do we build domestic ecosystems for the production of advanced therapies targeting non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes. India is the diabetic capital of the world, so it's very important for us. And autoimmune disorders. The second thing is that this whole is actually going to create institutes. 3 new national institutes of pharmaceutical education and research are going to be created, and the 7 new ones are going to be modernized by adding this discipline to them. Most importantly, clinical trials. Professor Chaturvedi is talking of the CROs. 1,000 clinical trial centers are going to be set up, because for this we need clinical trials, and the number of clinical trials here are much larger than a pharmaceutical area. Most importantly, to enable this to happen, there's going to be a regulatory overhaul of the Central Drug Standards Control Organization to align these to align Indian timelines with global standards. So we're not looking purely at Indian, we're thinking at a global positioning. And of course, beyond manufacturing, this is going to be complementary healthcare management going on. So it's a it's a kind of a 360-degree view of this industry. It's an emerging industry, and it's an industry of the future, a sunrise industry, like the Prime Minister said.
In fact, we have similar ambitions, Mr. Indrabhai, for the electronics sector as well. In terms of mobile manufacturing, we've been doing remarkably well. But how can we position ourselves better? If I should put it like that, how can India position itself as a more trusted alternative electronics hub, given the current scenario? We're already seeing global supply chains fragmenting. So amid these uncertainties, India has a huge opportunity. How do we, encash this big opportunity that comes before us?
Yes, considering the world today, there is a huge opportunity for India. What we are seeing is there is a major the supply chain disruption, where chips are not available. The existing supply chains are getting broken, and the AI is playing a very critical role, where many countries owning the technology are denying that to the other countries. So everywhere we can see disruption, and when disruptions happen, it's a huge opportunity for countries like India. India, the biggest advantage is there is a major skilled manpower existing, and it's a design country by nature, and there's a human manpower advantage also. So it's a great opportunity for India, and we are actually doing the right steps. We have seen the government, the Prime Minister announced making India as a semiconductor hub, semiconductor superpower in the coming years, and there are steps taken in the last few years, like ISM 1.0, where we have made big announcements. We have created a very comprehensive plan, which includes design-linked incentives, then the support for the fabs or SATs, and also a very good importance to skilling in the form of chip-to-startup programs, where 85,000 manpower going to be created in semiconductors. So there is a extremely comprehensive plan announced two to 3 years back, and we are reaping the benefit. We can see good progress made on those fronts. Many OSAT facilities got set up. Mm-hmm. The semiconductor fabs are going to come, and there are many DLI startups got engaged, and many prototypes of Indian chips are coming out. These are going to production. So there is a major progress made in that front. So one point I want to emphasize here is it is a very disruptive phase for technology. AI is becoming extremely important. So AI hardware is one of the areas India should focus. If we lose out on it, we'll be again sent backwards in the future. So other sectors like semiconductor, we got delayed, but AI is a good opportunity for us to be in the forerunner in that space.
That's right. In fact, the government has already, spoken about how we are moving from AI potential to AI adaptation in various fields. We heard the finance minister say how India believes in the benefits of AI being passed on to different sectors. So, for example, women in STEM, the farmers in fields, and so on. But since the conversation we just had was about India positioning itself as a global leader in various sectors amid the global fragmentation that we are seeing. Mr. Chugh, how do you see this budget strengthening India's case as a responsible energy transition leader globally?
Yeah, I think if you address the different spokes of the energy sectors which have been touched in this particular budget, I think you will see that the spectrum has widened. While initially we were talking about the renewable energy and the solar boost, but now the debate and the initiatives have transferred to grid stability and storage, which becomes very important if India has to continue to add on the renewables while addressing their intermittencies. The policy support is going to extend to the grid scale batteries with an infrastructure risk guarantee fund introduced to aid the large-scale storage, energy storage projects. Now, on the manufacturing incentives, I think we are seeing the custom duty exemptions. They are continued on the capital goods for manufacturing the lithium-ion batteries, solar glass to encourage the domestic manufacturing. While the new areas like the nuclear energy, emphasis on the nuclear energy expansion, the government has extended the basic custom duty on specified nuclear power equipments, which is going to be a big boost for indigenization of the reactor components and the absorber rods. And the good part is that the benefits are going to extend up to 2035. And so is the critical minerals. I mean, each one of us has been discussing about the role which critical minerals are going to play if India has to transit not only from the point of view of climate sustainability, but also from energy perspective. Also on biogas, CBG, there has been a lot of impetus of waste to energy projects, but the announcements which have been there in this particular budget is that the excise duty is to be excluded for the biogas, and that is going to be a big boost for the programs like already the Government of India programs like Satat, which is sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. And I think the carbon capture is a big indication that while we are there in terms of addressing the energy efficiencies, we are equally responsible nation as far as capturing the carbon dioxide is concerned. And this is going to be a big boost for the sectors, which are considered to be the hard to abate sectors, and big relief to the citizens, those where pollution is going to be the main focus. As of now, we have seen the debates around pollution. Or data centers have been touched, and now 7 high-speed metro corridors. I think those initiatives are going to place India, link them with the likes of artificial intelligence, and they are going to place India on the world map. Having said that, I think there were some missing aspects which probably from the earlier versions of the budget, we would have loved to see. Green hydrogen mission was announced in the earlier editions of the budget, but we would have, as an industry, everybody was waiting for the mandated offtake, which is actually acting as a deterrent, while the supply side enablers have been there on the policy side by the government. The mandated offtakes would have really kicked the large-scale investments, which currently the industry is hesitant of. And also, along with the carbon capture, we should be undertaking the actions and strong actions on the trading platforms to monetize the decarbonization, which is on the in the preparation, but it has to be strengthened. Mm-hmm. The transmission side, it is like the visibility is there, but the generation ambitions are much more, and therefore these are few things which Government of India should be taking up in the policy, from the policy perspective, to realize the objectives which have been raised in this budget.
That's right. In fact, I'm sure these recommendations would have reached the policymakers, but as the guests on the program have already outlined, that this government takes it step by step. And most importantly, what's remarkable is that it doesn't wait budget to announce big policy steps. And I'm sure, given the importance of green hydrogen and the big role that it has to play in our green transition, this will be an announcement that we will hear very soon. On artificial intelligence, before we wrap up the program, this is something that that we must discuss. discuss, Mr. Chinoy. The Finance Minister said last year it was about AI potential. In fact, the survey also mentioned it implicitly. Now we are talking about AI adoption in many sectors. Could AI be the force multiplier, especially in the area of MSMEs, to leapfrog into the kind of transformation and revolution that we want to see in that sector?
I think the specific announcement in this budget about AI, there was a general paragraph about AI, but there was a very, very specific announcement relating to agriculture.
Yes.
It says the Bharat Vistar program, a new multilingual AI tool designed to integrate the AgriStack portal with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research practices. It provides customized advisory support to farmers to improve productivity and risk management. What is not mentioned will actually be in different languages. So you will see this actually happening. The idea about data centers is also to support the AI initiative. You also had this whole boost to the orange economy, which is the creative economy and the use of AI. You have heard a whole lot of announcements in the tourism sector, which are talking of interactive programs in these 15 specified monuments, etc., which is also going to be AI used. But I think, Tina, the budget being silent on AI, my view is, we had the global AI summit coming up in a few days, and I think the Prime Minister will make some announcements then. So, I'll just wait and watch, and actually we will see something emerging happening.
Maybe the announcement will be made then.
The IT Minister talked at Davos and talked about what we are doing. The economic service or something. Let's wait for the global AI summit in a few days.
That's right. Professor, from freight corridors to city economic regions, infrastructure is of course becoming quite data heavy. Do you think AI, and based on what the Finance Minister said, based on what the economic survey has spoken about, India needing to strengthen the AI ecosystem, given the manner in which it is being used across sectors and by individuals, could it become the invisible backbone of our logistics revolution?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That is how they are positioning it. And actually, if you've seen the economic survey, and Mr. Shinoy had done a beautiful analysis on that, if you look at the economic survey, while it speaks about what are the powers of AI, that we need to use it in our country in a big way, and that's going to be very supportive for us, helping us leapfrog, it has to be prudently used. Where are we going to use the AI? How are we going to use the AI? That has to be very, very carefully designed and analyzed. I think that is something which has been told in the economic survey, but much before the economic survey, the pundits have also said that while AI could be disruptive for the economy in the short run, of course in the long run it's going to be very productive. In the short run, I think MSMEs will play a very important role during that transition period. And this is what I liked in the budget today, that the MSME sector has been the focus. To a great extent, the Finance Minister announced a growth fund for them, 10,000 crore, and also spoke about the Mitras which will be there in Tier 2, Tier 3 cluster cities. I think that is a very big contribution in the budget. So keeping in mind the revolution that AI will bring in, I think the economic survey played a very important role in saying we have to be watchful. And that's why probably in the budget much has not been said, and probably the global summit we will hear much more. But please remember that the Google and Microsoft have already helped India in that sense, come and invested huge amount of resources in AI.
Yes.
So we are almost on the frontier if we combine the IT and the AI sector.
Okay, to wrap up the conversation, Professor Chaturvedi, one last question. This is about AI. Since it's being rampantly used, especially by the youth, perhaps India is one of the largest users of ChatGPT, to put it in that way. Do you think when we say strengthening AI ecosystem, we mean that from becoming AI users, we must move towards becoming AI creators? And a second question is related to the geopolitical scenario, India's global position as acting as a bridge between the developed and the developing world. How do you look at India using artificial intelligence as one of the tools to perhaps bridge that gap between the technological gap between the North and the global South?
That's right, Tina. Before I get into that, I must remind ourselves collectively the key message that budget has also given is in terms of trust-based governance. And I think while talking about IT and IT-based interventions, the filing, the importance of customs duties and their restructuring, budget has given this key message of trust. And I think in AI-based interventions, the road ahead is the trust. And how do we bring in governance? There are specific countries, particularly US, the whole group is opposed to any kind of governance. We are trying to bring in, and the new mother of all deals, the FTA with the EU, has given us and has opened new vistas for cooperation with the EU on governance, which is trust-based for AI. And this, I think, with France, we are going to take this forward. And this is what, Tina, would be a great bridge with the Global South. We have already demonstrated infrastructure-related issues where with the digital public infrastructure, DPI, with our development cooperation, we have highlighted this. And second component would be the new vehicles on it, which are the digital technologies, AI-based vehicles, which would go in. Already just 2 days back, Ambassador Hardeep Puri and the group hosted India's energy meet, which Mr. Chugh is well aware of, well engaged in. So that part, I think, has given new dimension of how biofuel-based alliance and also our alliance with the Global South would take us forward. So whether it is AI or issues related to biopharmaceuticals, Semiconductor 2.0, there are multiple areas where we have opportunity of connecting with the Global South. The Voice of the Global South Summit, which India hosted 3 times, has made it absolutely clear how we see this bridge coming up. And I think it would be a major impetus in terms of how geopolitics, which is creating more islands, more disconnection than connectivity. And at this point, India's message of Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas is not just for India, as Prime Minister time and again has explained, it is for the global world. And that's what I see in terms of contributing towards this.
That's right. So Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas actually has a global alignment as well. So when we say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, we're trying to perhaps see it as a combination of both. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas aligning with our Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam policy that we've seen India propagate. Very quickly, Mr. Chinoy, you wanted to say something?
No, she announced 4 applications, AI.
Yes.
Customs, AI-led cargo screening, very detailed. Second, planning, looking at predictive gap analysis and Gati Shakti. Third, multimodal orchestrations to look at this here. And very interestingly, taking AI to schools and colleges and preparing them to use AI. And other than the agriculture one which I talked about.
That's right. So more announcements on AI will perhaps be made at the AI Impact Summit, which is just around the corner. But all in all, just to summarize the program, and I'd like to quote the Finance Minister herself. She said that this budget is one that aims to balance ambition with inclusion. So Mr. Chinoy said this is a very ambitious budget, but at the same time, this is also a very inclusive budget. It talks about reforms, it talks about stability, it talks about growth, but with resilience, given the volatilities that we are witnessing in the global geopolitical landscape. Time allows us to take up only that much, gentlemen. Thank you once again for joining us, sharing your thoughts on this very futuristic budget that you've spoken about and the various sectors that have gained majorly from the announcements that the Finance Minister made. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to you viewers as well.
Thank you.